There's only 24 hours in a day. I got a pair of earbuds and I wish there was a way that I could know just what I want to listen to. There's 150,000 shows that I'm not sitting through. When the world is dark and boring, let us do your exploring. Pod on pod. Pod on pod.
Welcome to Pod on Pod, a guide to the world of podcasts because it's not your daddy's radio. We're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joel. And this is a very special episode of Pod on Pod.
Bum, 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 bum.
We've made it to 25 episodes, my friend.
Yeah.
A half a year we've been going at this. We've only skipped 1 week in all that time.
And
I'm
we can
impressed.
now review ourselves.
Yes. In fact, I say that we've done an excellent job and I give us 2 earbuds. It's my favorite show.
A full earbud, maybe.
Yeah, all right, then. Normally, what you'd hear here on Pod is a new podcast review. Every week, every Wednesday morning, you can open up your favorite podcasting app and get a new review. We review different shows from all over the internet, small shows and big shows, so that you can hear what might be for you or what might not be for you and save you time. There's a tremendous amount of great content out there, and we're proud to promote it on a regular basis.
There's an equal amount of not tremendous content.
Indeed. And we want to make sure that you don't get soured on podcasting by hearing a couple of shows that aren't right for you. So you can come listen to us and see what we think. And through that, you're going to have a real good idea whether it's a show that you want to invest your own time in or not. What we're going to do today, though, is sort of go back and look at the shows that we've already talked about and talk about them a little bit more. We're going to give you some updates, some of the things that we got wrong, some of the things that listeners added in the interim, and then some things maybe that have changed about the show, how they've come and gone, etc., and then maybe how we've changed about the way we feel about those shows too.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing that I want to do is give some general updates. We'll start at the very beginning. Doug Loves Movies, the first show that we ever reviewed. It was our pilot episode.
Yes.
Neither one of us cared for it as much as we originally thought we were going to.
Yeah, I had very high hopes. I still love Doug Benson. He makes me laugh. This show is still not for me.
We had a lot of Doug Loves Movies fans that made it pretty clear we just didn't get it. And that's fair enough. They also, though, did correct us on something. I said during that review that the UCB, the theater in which this show takes place, the UCB, or generally takes place, I called it UCal Berkeley.
And you are wrong.
Way wrong. It's the Upright Citizens Brigade. I should have known that. I didn't realize it was a space as well as a troop. I knew the Upright Citizens Brigade is a theater troop. I did not understand that they had a theater that they called the Upright Citizens Brigade as well.
Have you ever seen them?
I haven't.
I have.
Look at that, in person?
In
they came to town. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's what happens when you have babies. You miss things like the Upright Citizens Brigade coming to our little hamlet. The second show that we reviewed was Ivy Envy. And this was awesome. They just put out, even if you're like me and you don't really like baseball, which was my only real hang up with their show. I didn't care for it because I don't care for baseball. But they just put out an episode for National Podcast Day, September 30th. It just passed. If you haven't celebrated it, that's okay. That's the beauty of podcasting. You can do it on your time. So tell somebody about podcasting today. But they did this great episode all about podcasting, how they got into it themselves, what shows they listen to, how they listen to those shows. And it's the kind of episode that's great for anybody, whether you like baseball or not, whether you're just getting into podcasting or you've been with it a while. It's really cool to hear somebody else's take on it.
It's a celebration of podcrafting.
Absolutely. That's the most recent episode from Ivy Envy. Go check that out. And on that episode, I would like to point out, Corey, the main host, agrees with me on Stitcher. He says nothing wrong with Stitcher. It's kind of training wheels for podcast listeners, I think. But they resample the audio, and that bothers Corey just like it bothers me.
It makes me know never mind.
You got any updates on Decode DC? That's the next show that we reviewed.
No, I haven't listened to it.
Me neither, actually. Not a single episode
I just
since
don't
we reviewed.
like the very interesting content that I enjoyed. I just don't like the format.
So neither one of us stuck with Doug Loves Movies, but you're still listening to Ivy Envy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The next show was What Say You with Q and Sal.
This is one of my wife's favorites.
It's one of your wife's favorites.
Yes.
Are you still listening to it week to week?
Well, so these guys are incredibly busy. I get it. It's just hard to keep up or hold interest in a show that has as many breaks as they do. They'll go 2 weeks without one, 3 weeks with one, 2 weeks they have them. They'll do one that's an hour and a half. They'll do one that's 20. Like, it's too sporadic.
It's neither one of their first priorities, and therefore it falls apart from time to time.
Right, but it works out. It works out for Rachel, because she listens to podcasts sporadically.
So the next show that we reviewed was Scarborough Country.
I don't even want to talk about this one.
You have stopped listening to it, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm not listening to it regularly either, but I have a correction before we really get to that part of it.
This is why I've stopped listening to it.
Scarborough Country.
Yes.
We were reviewed in iTunes, and the correction came in that review. The subject of the review was you need to know more about the shows you're reviewing. For instance, you knew nothing about Scarborough. Country comes out on Fridays, and Tuesdays is County.
But do they
It's
come
two
out
separate shows.
Do they come out under the same feed?
Yes.
Okay, then that's ridiculous. How can you have a show of twins who already sound alike and then have two different shows that also sound alike?
Yes. Does that sound so much alike? Even they trip up on it sometimes. Here's the deal, and the more important part is this. Every episode is somebody's first episode. You've got to be clear about what your show is about and how this episode is different from a normal. If you're doing something vastly out of the normal, you got to do that. You got to tell people every time. If your show's got a weird format like that, like, hey, on Tuesdays we do this thing and on Fridays we do that thing, you got to mention that. And you got to mention it a lot because people aren't listening all the time. Your podcasting is often a background activity.
Now, they understand that they sound alike. Obviously, they've grown up with it, so they do a fairly good job of naming each other throughout the show.
Sure.
So that's a plus.
But they sound alike, so it doesn't really matter that they're naming each other. With Joe Rogan experience, you got anything to add there? Still Broganful?
Yeah, no, it's still it's aptly named, man. It is aptly named.
It's not for me.
I just don't care for Joe Rogan.
Girl on Guy with Aisha Tyler was the next one.
The new season has started. I want to say it's 2 episodes deep into the new season. First episode of the new season, I believe, was with Jesse Tyler Ferguson, which was pretty cool, and I'm still listening to this one.
I haven't kept up on this one. I've also got an addition. We got a little bit of negative feedback, and in retrospect, properly so. You and I both.
I don't agree.
You and I both made a big deal about the fact that she's a beautiful woman in the review.
You're right, but you also have to understand that she's not only a podcaster.
She's not only a podcast
personality.
She's a TV personality.
Yeah, she started on TV.
Yeah.
And if she wasn't attractive, I guarantee you she would have never been on Friends.
Fair enough. But we did get a knock for that, for mentioning that in our audio.
We're just two dumb guys.
Review.
It happens.
we are two knuckleheads.
Here's why I can't apologize for it, because I know I'm going to do it again.
Oh, indeed.
I know I am. I can't help it. I don't mean anything bad by it. I don't mean anything good by it. It's just going to happen.
John Oliver's show, The Bugle, was our next one.
Took a break for the summer for those of you who were trying to listen to it. But the good thing is, while The Bugle was on break, his show was on, so you could catch him on HBO on last week tonight.
Is that over now that The Bugle is back? I guess it's wrapped production at least. Well, no, they do week to week, so it can't. If it's over, I mean, if they've wrapped production, then they're done for the season.
Yeah, but the Bugle has started back up.
You say that they had one episode.
They've got like 3 or 4 out.
Well, at least the latest one was
today.
Okay, yeah, but that was the name of it was it's just the other guy. It's not John Oliver. It's
but they still did that during regular seasons. Like that happened every once in a while.
Oh, okay. What is his name? I feel like a jerk.
Andy.
Yes, Andy Zaltzman. Yeah, so it was Andy. It's an Andy solo episode. That's why I'm saying it's a little cheap to say that the season's back.
They're back.
Okay, they're back. What about Oh No, Ross and Carrie?
Haven't listened to another episode since we researched them.
I'll say this. We had another review in iTunes where somebody specifically mentions this when they're like, hey, I'm just going to have to stop listening to you when you review a show that I already love because if you sacrifice it, it makes me angry. And neither one of us cared for Oh No, Ross and Carrie, and this was that person's favorite show.
I had the same issue with Oh No, Ross and Carrie as we did with Word Rango. I like part of the hosts. I don't like all of the hosts.
Fair enough. Welcome to Night Vale. You still listening to that one?
Yes.
I have not gotten into it. I said after our review that I was going to get into it in earnest, and we review podcasts all the time, and so it's forging ahead, ever forward.
I think when this show runs its course, when it's done, when it's finished, and who knows when that's going to be, I think that content will be some of the greatest podcast content ever created.
You're saying it'll be like, I'm trying to think of a sci-fi or a fantasy television staple. It'll be like the Star Trek of podcasting?
Yes. The Doctor Who of podcasting, the Dune of podcasting, nay, the Game of Thrones of podcasting.
All right, then. What about education?
This is one of the ones, if you're thinking about listening to Welcome to Night Vale.
Oh, you
have to start at the beginning.
You got to start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning,
and then you got to give it several episodes. It's gonna warm up to you, and you'll warm up to it. What about education?
So this one also just started back. It took about an 8-week hiatus while Kevin Smith was out promoting his new movie Tusk, and I gotta say, it doesn't bother me that it's back. It didn't bother me that it was gone. I am a Kevin Smith fan. Take that for what you will. I love a lot of the content he puts out through Smodco. It's my least favorite, and it's because he is so hard to wrangle in on this when he's not focused. It goes on way too many tangents, and it's generally an hour and a half show that should be 45 minutes.
You know, I was so excited when I saw there was a new episode the other day. I listened. I was giddy. And then I turned it on, and I realized all of a sudden that it was over, and I had barely listened to any of it. I couldn't, I had it on, but I wasn't paying attention. I missed the whole I might go back and listen again, but I found myself a little maybe the magic's gone. I'm hoping that it's not that. I'm hoping that, it's just going to take me a few episodes to get back into it with them being regular. But I'm worried that they're not going to be because they're about to go into production for Krampus, right?
I'm not sure about Krampus, but I know he's already in production for Yoga Hosers.
Yeah, and Clerks 3 has financing, so that'll shoot soon.
And I'm worried Jaws is coming up next.
Yeah, I'm worried that he's just going to get busy again, and they won't have time to do that podcast.
I won't miss this podcast. And here's the sad thing is, I can definitely understand where the listener's coming from to the point of, if I already like a show, I really don't want to listen to your review in case you sacrifice it.
Yeah.
I really did like this show so much more before I reviewed it.
You know, one of the interesting things that we're doing right now is we're starting to actually pre-record some of our reviews for November, for Listener Appreciation Month.
A little update there for you guys, because we enjoy and appreciate the time that we get to spend with you all every week. In November, we've decided we're going to do 2 shows a week. We want to get as many of your podcasts in as possible. And in order for us to do that, we've got to pre-record some.
Absolutely. But one of the things that's allowed me to do is today, for instance, I listened to 3 different podcasts that we're going to be reviewing in November, but I didn't listen to them in a row. I listened to 1 episode of each, and I'm going back and forth. I'm wondering if listening in that way won't affect my impression of the show, because I won't burn out on it.
I think that it definitely probably will. I mean, I gave myself a tummy ache on Sick and Wrong.
Well, that's like guzzling, a 2-liter bottle of soda. I thought you had a broader point.
No, that was it.
Okay. What about the Martha and Eric podcast?
What's funny is I still keep up with these guys, but not so much through their podcast. I keep up with them through their social media. And they do an excellent job. If you are a 16 to 24-year-old male in particular, women do like the show as well, and you like gaming, this is a good show for you. It's not for me. I'm not that demographic, but I do enjoy following them after being introduced to them through their social media.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that wholeheartedly. Although that's exactly the way that I follow the IVMV guys. I don't listen to their podcast week to week, but I follow all of them on Twitter now, and I follow one of them on Instagram, I think. And looking to connect more with them because they do a good job not only promoting their own content, which I can try to learn from, but promoting other people's content too.
Yeah.
Those guys are part of the community in a big bad way. What about the Monette Dixon line?
Oh, the Monette Dixon line. You pushed for this one so bad. Even after we'd already put the stipulation that we are not going to review a show that doesn't at least have 20 shows in the can.
I know.
You pushed for this hard.
I did. I thought it was such a neat show, and in particular, we were going to do Martha and Eric at the same time, and I thought, let's get some young podcasters, let's get some old podcasters. How awesome is this? These guys, of course, were the 1950s and 1960s radio theatrical personalities, as well as television overseas, mostly with the BBC. South Africa, they had a lot of credits there in particular. It's a really neat show.
The format's very vaudevillian.
Yes.
It's cool. Didn't last.
Well, I maybe not. They haven't had a new episode since the week we reviewed them. I wondered for a while if we hadn't killed one of them. And I swear to God, I spent a lot of time today Googling both of them. I don't think either one of them has passed away. And if you look at their feed, there have been several times where there's been 3 or 4 months in between episodes. And so I'm hoping we're due for one, and it's just they've had some personal stuff, or they've traveled or gotten real work, and they've had some issues getting the next episode up. That's what I'm hoping.
We'll see.
We will see indeed. We'll revisit this in the next...
I couldn't be happier that one hasn't...
that one stopped?
Yeah, I couldn't be happier that they haven't put out one since we reviewed it, simply for the fact of how hard you pushed it. Not because it's a bad show in any way.
It's a really neat show, and you should check them out. WTF with Mark Maron.
I listen to it every time there's a new one.
I don't listen to it every time there's a new one, but I've got about 6 or 7 episodes downloaded in my podcast app right now. I've got this is one that I don't subscribe to it, but what I do is every week I go and check the feed for who was on it this week, and occasionally you ping me before I go check. Like you told me, hey, Ron Funches is on the most recent episode. So I went to download it. That's when I got to hear. I love this show. It's amazing. I just don't I don't feel like its format requires me to listen to it every week, and so I don't. I skip the monologue part. We know this. I don't care about Mark's life.
Right, and I like the monologue, so the monologue is why I listen every week.
Word Rango, you become a subscriber since we last revisited Bob Ball and the boys? You know what I wrote beside this in my notes? I said Bob Ball is still at large for his auditory crimes.
Funny. No, you know what? Here's the deal. We reviewed the show. I was probably pretty harsh. I'm not going to say I wasn't honest. I was definitely honest and truthful in how I felt about the show, and I still feel that way about the show. But I got to tell you, the response that they recorded, amazing.
Yes, and we link this out. If you go find us on Facebook, facebook.com/podonpod, you can find some links there. But they recorded their own review of our review, and it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and they had great points. They did stuff in funny ways. It was enjoyable. I'm still not going to change my mind on it. I was honest and truthful in that review, and I've been pretty consistent with my dislikes.
What about ESPN Fantasy Focus Football?
I haven't listened simply because I'm not doing fantasy football this year, and I could not be happier.
So it's not an issue for you. I have all but given up on the NFL this year, and specifically since they suspended Bill Simmons for longer than the NFL suspended Ray Rice, I haven't listened or watched anything from ESPN. So even if I was heavy into fantasy football this year, which I'm not, I've taken this show out of my subscription too. Nothing against the guys. I still love Nate Ravitz and Matthew Berry.
Yeah, it's a great show. If you are playing fantasy football of any kind, this is definitely a show you need to listen to.
Absolutely. And of course, they're still in the middle of their season, too. What about this stuff you should know, guys?
Yeah, I listen more now than I did before.
I do too, actually. And I said in our review even that I've gone in waves. Like I'll go, months and months, maybe a year at a time, where I'm listening to them every episode, and then all of a sudden they end up out of my subscription feeds for whatever reason, and I kind of forget about them for a while. And then, oh, hey, there's that one episode that got promoted, and I'll remember how much I love the show. But no, I'm listening regularly. And first of all, again, we just need to say those guys are the coolest people in the world. They have given us a shout out. And pretty much if you're listening to this podcast, you probably listened to them first, and that's where you heard of us. So kudos to Josh and Chuck.
Yeah, you know what I've been doing? So and they talk about it a lot, but I try to find all the suites that they have categories in. So, for example, they just did one on how police interrogation works.
Yeah.
So I try to go back and see, like, how the Miranda rights work, where they come from, and try to follow those breadcrumbs.
What about Harmontown, Josh?
Yeah, and I know you listen more than you did.
Not only do I listen more than I did, I listen to every episode. I just skip all the way to the Dungeons and Dragons part. I skip until I hear them call out Spencer. And then once Spencer's on stage, I stop to make sure they're not just playing a game with him. And then as soon as he starts doing his intro to last week on Harmontown time, when he starts doing that, I'm like, I am clued in, man. It's my favorite show. That part of his show is my favorite podcast.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
I also believe that when Harmontown is done with its run, the types of things that he's doing and the way that he's formatting the show and definitely including the audience, I also think that is going to be an epic piece of podcast lore, man.
It'll be like the Tonight Show with Jack Parr of the podcasting world.
That's funny. No, it'll be
like the Jackie Gleason Variety Hour.
No, it's the Late Night with Kilborn.
Oh, well, that's late in the genre, though. What about the Gotham podcasts? We reviewed 3 Gotham podcasts before the bat. We have not listened to Before the Bat any more since then.
No, but here's something that is interesting, and again, I don't know if this is coincidence or not.
There are no coincidences, Josh.
Right. But the podcast that we did review on Gotham, those guys got together and did an episode together.
Yes, and actually, I suppose we could say that we listened to an episode of Before the Bat again because all 3 of those shows released it in their own feeds. So
yeah, that
Before
was
the
really
Bat,
cool.
Legends of Gotham and Gotham TV podcast. Gotham City podcast was another one where we reviewed. They were not involved in the roundtable. I am really looking forward to listening to Gotham TV, but Gotham itself has not premiered yet in the UK.
Right.
And so those guys have not been able to see. I mean, I think they might have seen 1 or 2 of them probably in perhaps a less than legal means, but they're not talking about it. They're waiting until that UK audience is watching the show too, and then they'll review it week to week. Speaking of, what did you think of the Gotham TV show? You've seen how many episodes now? 2?
All the ones that are out so
yeah,
far.
I think it's just 2 so far. I've seen the first one. I have not seen the Selena Kyle episode.
I don't always like how heavy-handed they are with things, but I guess that goes back to more of an old-school kind of Batman comic book feel.
Right.
Where, guess what Catwoman happened to steal in the first episode? A quart of milk, right? Like that's
for her cats.
Yeah, like that's pretty ridiculous. Hey, the first time we see the Penguin, let's make sure he's holding an umbrella.
Or what about the fact that Poison Ivy is going to be adopted? We already know because that was released in like the details of the show, and her name is going to be the same as it is in the comics, but her real name before she's adopted is Ivy.
Yeah,
that's silly. That's a little, I'll agree with you. There were moments that were silly. Overall, I thought it was really good. The first episode was better than I expected it to be. It was better than the S.H.I.E.L.D. pilot last year. So there's that. What about Tell 'em Steve Dave?
I listen to it every week.
I know you do because we were listening to it on the way to the studio.
We sure were.
I'm like, what do you listen to, Josh? You're like, a little Tell 'em Steve
Dude,
Dave.
it's just
a little TSD.
Look, the 3 of those have such a good chemistry and such differing points of views. And they're all still great friends. Like it's a good show, man.
What about Modern Day Philosophers? Have you listened to any more of that?
Yes,
I have too.
I enjoy the show. In fact, Danny LaBelle is trying out for Last Comic Standing for this upcoming season.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So hey, kudos to him.
Well, in the episodes that we reviewed, he kept talking about having dreams of auditioning for SNL.
Yeah.
And I know there's like currently turnover and whatnot with the SNL cast. I kept wondering if he was going to sort of make a run at that, but I haven't seen such a thing if there was such a thing. I've listened to the show a couple times since then. I have not listened to every episode, but I'm getting every episode.
The twist. I love the twist format of them discussing a philosopher and still doing an interview style show.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. What about Mommy's Cocktail Hour?
I have listened to 2 other episodes since recording
I listened to one more myself. Yeah. I still don't think that I'm going to stay subscribed to it week to week, but like they were very nice online. The social media response to our review was very kind from them and their husbands. And like that, again, it's like a part of a community-minded thing. I was like, well, I give them another chance. It wasn't a live episode that I listened to, and I liked it better than... Maybe in retrospect, I might raise my grade a little bit, but I think overall, our review was truthful.
It's a great one to have in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like when you're introducing people to podcasts or podcasting for a certain subset, that's the show that will get them hooked to the medium altogether. Yeah. And most recently, the Sick and Wrong podcast. You said when we started that you had gotten a tummy ache on this one.
Yeah, still.
All burnt out, huh?
Oh yeah.
D did retweet me on the Twitters. He said that, well, I don't know. He said what I said. He said it wasn't for everybody, but I'm really glad that I don't know what I said. It's not for everybody, but I'm glad that we listened to Sick and Wrong and met D. Simon and Lance Wackerly or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you know he's from Louisiana?
What?
Yeah, D. Simon is from Louisiana. He doesn't live here, but he is from here. He mentioned that on one of the episodes that I listened to. And I didn't bring it up in the review. Yeah. Strange. Speaking of the submitted shows, let's talk for a minute about some of the episodes that you can expect coming soon here on Pod on Pod. We're going to talk about next week, The Inside Kids.
Yes.
This is a video game podcast.
It is. It's another video game podcast and I think that this one's going to be more for an older crowd, to where Martha and Eric was for a younger crowd.
This one's a little bit better known too. It features a couple of comedians. There are a couple. Kumail Nanjiani.
Yes.
And his lady Emily.
Yes.
Yes. There you go. What's her last name?
I cannot remember, but it's not Nanjiani.
It's not Nanjiani. He did put a ring on it.
Yeah, they're married.
But she didn't change her name. So next week is The Inside Kids, and then the week after that, we're going to be talking about the Weekly Planet podcast. This is my new favorite show, Josh. I love it so much.
I couldn't remember what was next on the list, so I'm
you won.
Way ahead.
That's what I'm saying. You wanted to do The Inside Kids.
Yes.
And I wanted to do the Weekly Planet. We're doing The Inside Kids first, mostly because you said it the other day, and I was like, I don't want to argue with him. But Weekly Planet has to be right after it. I listen to this every week, though, so I don't have to go out of my way to review this one. I know what I want to talk about.
You have now
what
built
are we
this,
reading
You
today?
have now built this podcast up so much.
I think
How
you're
could
gonna
I
adore it.
not bash it?
Oh, well, that's what you got to do, I guess. They're really, really funny, though. They're hilarious guys, and they've got a lot of great content and a lot of great info.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. And you should too. Podonpod.com is where you're going to get all of those things. And don't forget, coming in November, you're going to get 2 episodes a week, all month long, all listener submitted shows. It's Listener Appreciation Month.
Yes.
Josh, if you were the kind of person who had a band or some songs that you might want to share with our audience, or what if you had a podcast that you wanted us to review, where would you send that?
I would probably go to podonpod.com and hit contact.
That's right. That's all you got to do. Or you can just email us at podonpod@teamprocreate.com. Big thanks to Rob and the team at Team Procreate for everything they do on the back end. And thank you to our musical guest. Until next week, you got anything to add, sir? We didn't break down the networks, but I didn't make a list of the network. So until next week, I'm Joel.
And I'm Josh.
And that was Pod on Pod.
Are you wanting something funny? Are you wanting something smart? So on astral projection or the history of art? Do you want to learn a language or how to play guitar? Just leave it up to Joel and Josh. Pod on Pod. Pod on
Pod on Pod is a proud member of the Procast Network, a ProCreate production. ProCreate is a community of artists in film, music, the digital arts, and fine arts that helps connect and collaborate on projects. You can find out more at www.teamprocreate.com. For more great podcasts from the Procast Network, try Movie Buzzed. Join your host, Zach, every episode on the Movie Buzzed podcast for good friends, a good movie, and a great buzz.
The Pod on Pod theme song is written and performed by Adam Dale. Find his music in iTunes and more information about him on our website.
Our musical guest this week is Danny Jenkinson.